How far would you say the religious diversity has impacted the political landscape here or in the situations we know well?
The religious landscape of the U.S. and these struggles over ascendancy in the public sphere is really all about religious diversity. That's what the argument is. That you have a situation in the U.S. in particular where without an established religious authority, we had implicit religious authority through Protestantism up through the middle part of the 20th century. And the Protestant establishment found a way in the 18th and 19th centuries to maintain that kind of suzerainty over the culture and allow a certain kind of diversity to emerge underneath. But the problem was that implicit marking of the culture by Protestantism began to deteriorate in the late 19th and early 20th century. The visible presence of other religions, of Catholicism, of Judaism, and now the visible presence of Islam and of Buddhism and Hinduism are all bringing that sort of into question. And that leads people who are driven by kind of a religio-ethno-nationalist cultural agenda to become more active and more political.
I think in terms of religious diversity, I was thinking about your question, Julian, and I would say that in the Nordic countries, maybe also Western Europe, is this idea that we didn't think we had religion because it was so homogeneous in a way, everyone was Christian. Then when when newly arrivals from Muslim majority countries come in, we suddenly realize we do have religion. And it seems to matter in ways that we didn't really know about. So I think in a way that's interesting how a particular kind of diversity feeds a response that brings out another kind of diversity. At the same time, this is not really diversity, because I think you would agree with me, the fact is that when we're looking at how Muslims in Sweden, when they try to get articles through, for example, in op-eds, they end up just having to fight the stereotype about the militant or violent Muslim. And that means that certain voices are privileged, but also certain perspectives. So the internal variety of Islam is not really shown, since they are just put to blame and have to respond to a particular idea. So there are diversity, but also a lack of diversity in the way that the media and the political situation are shaping this.
I think in both of those situations, there's a certain assumption of what counts as religion. It's primarily about internal belief, internal piety, or ideas about what happens in the afterlife, which is actually, as scholars of religion, we know that that's actually not what religion is about. It's about social practices and communities and rituals. And often what is being contested is the very public visibility of forms of religiosity that don't fit this sort of post-Enlightenment Protestant notion of interiority. So the debates that we're having about, say, halal or kosher meat in the Netherlands, or minarets in Switzerland, it's not actually about privatized religion. It's about actually the public practice of religious identities and communities. And so I think it's as much, we've had sort of a swirling diversity in America of Presbyterianism, dissenting traditions like the Latter-day Saints, of Catholics, of Jews, but they operated, as you were saying, under this sort of shared assumption. What happens now when those break open and when other forms then want to reassert their own forms of identity?